actually on time almost. We need a motion to approve the agenda.
I will, okay, go ahead.
I make that motion to approve the agenda.
I will second.
All in favor? Aye. No changes, I'm assuming. I guess we should have.
None that we're aware.
We need a motion to approve the minutes for February 22nd, 2017.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes for the 22nd of February.
As well as March 15th.
Yeah, and March 15th.
I'll second.
And I'll go along with it because I wasn't here, so you can say whatever.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Board reports. Anything exciting happening? Really?
No, that's all.
We almost have a half a track.
Yeah.
I got all the.
You'll be state champions in the 50-yard dash.
Oh, it's cool after having cinders. You know, like growing up in Bonanza, that's all we had then when I was in high school was a cinder track. And then here it's like, man, I'd love to see a track. And now, yeah, after the meeting we went and the curbs are up and they're dropping. Yeah, it's like, whoa, that's how they build these things?
Exciting.
Yeah, so that's, all right, financial report.
Does anybody have any questions on the handouts, your regular reports? Bob, did you want me to talk about the fiber project?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. If there are no questions on the financial end of things, just a quick update on the fiber projects for Paisley and then also for Plush and Edel. Paisley, I think all of you know, was funded. Hunter is making progress on that project. State funding is still on the way, it's promised, they tell me, but I haven't seen it yet. And it should be a go. On Adele and Plush, we put in the paperwork and now we're just waiting to hear from the E-rate program whether or not it's been funded. And that can take anywhere up from, a week or two to months and months, so.
Where are Plush Nadel getting their internet services from now?
Currently is through CenturyLink.
Okay.
T1 lines. Yeah.
T1 lines that don't work worth a hoot.
Right.
Way too
Really?
far out.
T1 line.
It's been an ongoing frustration. They're supposed to each have their own T1 line from CenturyLink, but what happens is as soon as, if you want to use the internet in Plush, you better do it before ADL starts to use theirs, because once ADL starts to use theirs, Plush, their connectivity just evaporates. And listen, it's no great shakes at ADL. I'm amazed at the patience that Larry and Stacy and the kids have. It takes forever to get anything done on the internet out there, forever. So.
Yeah.
You think you're back in the old days of dial-up. It's,
Okay.
It's that bad?
yes.
So this would be a big, huge bump for him.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. I guess if there's no questions on the bills, no? Dale's not here, so we don't have a fine tooth comb. That's you, Mr. Nash.
Okay.
And you only have a couple more times of this, so.
Yeah, get your licks in while you can.
We need a motion to approve
We'll start with the bad news. Mr. Will Hicks, our special ed teacher who we hired at the start of this year to work at Daly Middle School, Lakeview High School, resigned because he was offered a kindergarten job at here in Lakeview.
No kidding.
And that's really where he had been teaching before he came here, is at that primary level. We posted the job. We have a couple of applicants. I've been trying to get in touch with them. Haven't been able to do that. But also tomorrow, I have a meeting with the District 7 folks. There is a possibility we may be able to fill the job with some existing personnel. So we'll know more we'll know more here shortly. You know, what we do, Will is an ESD employee, but he works exclusively at the high school and middle school here. And this may involve a shifting around and us picking up a different special education employee. We're gonna stay with special ed, but we will see. In the meantime, we're also looking, District 7 and the ESD are both looking very, very hard, but it's very much an uphill push to find a special ed teacher. So, and of course, having Will was just as I told you in February, Will is outstanding, but this wasn't exactly unexpected. This was, you know, kind of.
That'll be really interesting.
Well, they must have thought a lot
He
of
loves it. That's where he had been teaching kindergarten previously. He loves it.
Fabulous.
We had Mr. Grant do first grade,
Uh-huh.
and I thought the same thing, but he was awesome.
Yeah.
Because you just don't see it.
No, I think
Yeah.
it's great. I have seen it.
So,
Before I moved here.
I mean, nowadays you
Every
don't, but yeah.
till
But
1800s.
it's,
And District 7 must have thought a lot of them.
Yes.
Hired, so, I mean.
Especially for kids that don't have a father figure in the home to
Yeah.
start off.
so like Mr.
That-
Grant, though, the bad part is when you go do the parent-teacher conferences, and for whatever reason, the women in that role don't seem to do it, but Mr. Grant would talk to you like you were the first grader. When he's telling you about your kid, and you're just kind of, you know, we can pick it up a little bit. Not that slow.
Was it just you, or did you hear from other, I don't know.
No, he did that with everybody. He was around the kids so much. I mean, that was his life that he talked. When he continued to talk, he was at that level. It's like,
I don't yet have,
I think he enjoyed it.
I don't have a letter of resignation yet, and we'll get that for the next board meeting, but we have posted the position and we are actively looking, so. Anyway, Sarah already gave the connectivity update. I think the board needs to understand that Sarah has spent a lot of time on this. It's one of the services I think that she provides, both the ESD and the school districts. It's kind of an unsung role of hers, and so my hat is off to Sarah for the hard work that she puts into stuff like that. And, you know, we're there with Paisley, pretty much there, as long as the state comes across with their money. And we'll keep our fingers crossed on Flush and Adel. Perfect. This could also lead to expanded residential service in both areas.
Oh, wow.
Little bit of a grant update. In February, we were talking about the grants. Since then, we have had sizable requests, and we're glad to have these sizable computer requests from both Paisley and North Lake. And so we're getting close to expending our grant funds there. We are in the home stretch of planning for our summer kindergartens, which we will be conducting in North Lake, Paisley, and Lakeview. 2 weeks ago in town here, we had a P3 summit where we had about 30-some people from all over the county putting together a plan to move forward with early education as best we can, knowing that we don't have any money. So we'll just sort of see how that
Who
goes.
will go to kindergarten camp?
In Lakeview, North Lake, and Paisley this summer, it'll be all open to all incoming kindergartners.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what the referral process will be?
Well, see, last year we actually had a referral process. We selected, particularly in Lakeview, the 50% that were identified most at risk, were having the lowest incoming skills. Really what we did is we looked for the ones that didn't have much preschool experience. And, but they requested, and we have the money to basically pay for all the kids. You know, they did last year. Paisley did all of their kids last year. Now North Lake did theirs on their OCF grant, so I can't really speak to that. But this year, it's my understanding that they'll be including all their incoming kindergartners. So there is no real referral process. They'll just make it available to all their families. So we're really excited about that. It really means, and we're going to work something out with the Warner Valley. I haven't really had time to focus on that yet, but last year we offered to let them come into District 7. But I need to talk to Luann about that and find out what we can do for the Warner Valley. So that's moving right along, and like I say, we did end up getting some sizable grant requests from Paisley and North Lake, so we're pleased with that. The modular, the hospital board has approved the purchase of our modular. So, and it went from, at first they didn't want it right away, and now they do want it right away, but they understand that they can't get it until Head Start has vacated the premises, so. And I'm gonna start working on, just, making contracts to get the utilities disconnected. But there's several things that Head Start's gonna have to do in terms of, tearing things down and moving things so we can get that building out of there. But anyway, and I believe we already have the check, correct?
We do.
Wow.
Wow.
What do you go for?
Can you
Seven
cash it
thousand.
now?
Well, it's good.
It cleared.
Good.
Yeah, we did.
That's great.
We're pleased with that. Item number 5, the OAESD officer election, and I didn't make a copy of this ballot. There is a contested election for the chair-elect of the OAESD Governance Council. And there are two candidates. There's Rob Moore from High Desert and David Dunstan from Benton Lincoln. They're both board members of those respective districts. I do have a brief statement from both of them. No, I have a brief statement from one of them, and then the other statement I have is for the chair-elect who's running unopposed. So that one's kind of a slam dunk. If you were to ask me for my recommendation, I would say go with Mr. Moore. He's from High Desert. He is very active in the OAESD. He's always at the meetings. He and the administration of High Desert really have, I think, a strong affinity for Lake ESD. Mr. Dunstan's a great guy as well. I mean, I know David a little bit as well. I've been to several meetings with him, don't know him quite as well as Rob. But anyway, all I would ask is for the board to just allow me to make that vote. And then Clayton has to sign on it too.
I would say that's fine.
Yeah, they're both, you can't go wrong with either one of them, but I think Rob's just he's a little bit closer to.
Did he speak last year?
Yes, yeah, he did. Yep. The OAESD Spring Conference is coming right up. It's in Eagle Crest or Redmond, March 18th, 19th, and 20th. We have a reservation for Mr. Hyatt. If any of the rest of you would like to go,
It is fun.
it's
It's
interesting.
almost a stare down.
You don't, here's the deal. The 18th is kind of a waste of time. The afternoon of the 18th, they have a governance council meeting. I will be there for that. I don't know if Jim's gonna be there, but
Probably, I'm figuring on it unless it gets in the way.
most of the action is Friday. It's all day Friday. They have quite an agenda planned. It's very interesting, particularly to hear about, what the other ESDs are doing and programs that they have. We're, as you guys are probably aware, we're pretty basic compared to a lot of the ESDs out there that have a lot of different.
A lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money and a lot of different departments and agendas.
That's on the day of the 19th.
That's the 19th. And then they go Saturday morning, the 20th, till noon.
Oh. I could actually probably make the 19th, but
If you can make the
I don't
19th,
need a motel or anything.
we will, well, and here's the other thing. I believe we have one extra room, correct?
I think so.
We have one extra room, but then I live about 3 miles from Eagle Crest. I shouldn't say I live, I have a house up there. And I have plenty of bunks.
Yeah, okay, but I mean,
And you're certainly, and Jim's welcome to stay at my place. But I don't want.
He hasn't told us.
I don't want people to feel like I'm forcing them to stay at my house. If they want to stay there, that's fine. If they prefer to stay at Eagle Crest, we have rooms, whatever people want.
Sorry, but I could probably do that, so.
Oh.
I don't know if I'd stay, because it's just Redmond, so it's not a big
Okay, and then Saturday,
drive for me, but.
excuse me, Friday night is the big banquet.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, that's a,
And it's a good time. One of the things at the banquet is we are fairly positive that our youth mentor program will be recognized as one of the
Oh, wow.
innovative
Cool.
programs around the
Great.
state. Last time I checked, I was the only person who had submitted a nomination, so I'm hoping that that's still the case. It's always a fun evening, you know, so Clayton, we'd love
But I
that.
think I could see that one, so.
Do
Okay.
you wanna go to the banquet
Yeah.
Do you want
probably
fish or
would.
chicken?
or
Or steak?
steak?
Steak. Yes.
And you are more than welcome to stay at my place, I don't, whatever, you both of you guys, whatever you
Okay.
want.
I'll keep in touch.
Okay. Will Cahill from District 7 contacted me. Steve Kelly from OSBA is coming down on July 10th to do one of their boardsmanship 101 trainings with them. I just told him I just tossed that out there in case anybody is interested. It's primarily for newer board members, but I have actually sat through it on a couple of occasions. It's pretty good, pretty interesting training. So I'll just throw that out there. And if any of our board members would like to go, we've offered to basically split the bill depending on who shows up. So we would gladly pay for any board member that wants to go to that. Then segueing right into the next agenda item, legislative update. Well, let's get the bad news out of the way first, and I'm sure Jeanette's heard all of this. The state budget is just looking terrible.
I can't figure out why.
Just looking, yeah, here we are, we have the lowest unemployment ever.
The stock
But-
market is,
Things are not good. The governor had budgeted education in the state school fund at 8.1 billion. Right now, though, what's in the legislature is 7.8 billion. The belief is that somewhere between 8.1 billion and 8.4 billion would maintain current service levels. So at 7.8 billion, we're certainly looking at probably making some cuts, okay? But listen, it is way premature for us to panic on this deal. They're only halfway through the legislative session. Lots of talk about it may not even get done until one or two special sessions. I think there's just no point in us, panicking at this point. I think we just have to be fairly optimistic and hope that it will move up from that 7.8 billion figure, and just see what happens. David Kerr and I went up in the middle of March and met with several of our legislators. We met with Mike McLean and Senator Linthicum and Representative Reschke and had a little chat with them. We went up there. This is for the COSA OSBA Legislative Day. We met with them, made it very clear what kind of cuts we would be looking at if it stayed at 7.8. And so right now it's just kind of a stare-down game between Democrats who would like to raise taxes and Republicans who say, no, let's just cut spending. So we just have to kind of wait and see who wins the stare-down contest.
What are the districts doing? Do they have a figure they're going with, or?
Because everybody has been told to budget at that 7.8 figure. And I don't know what,
That's what we did, wasn't it, sir?
yes,
I'm pretty sure.
Northlick did, ADL did, I believe District 7 also did.
yes, District 7 did as well.
Okay.
And I don't have any specifics to give you right now as far as exactly what they're doing to balance their budgets. Again, Sarah and I haven't even really started to look at that. We will obviously over the course of the next month, before our budget meeting in May, we will start putting things together. A little bit later tonight, we'll be talking about a COLA for our employees, and you're probably wondering how we can do that, but we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. I think we just have to wait this out and see what happens. I will say this, at 7.8, we probably will be cutting a few things out of the budget. 8.1, who knows?
What would it be?
see. What would it be? Oh, we've talked about things like possibly the enrichment fund, possibly a good share of our library consultant, possibly some of our support for statewide assessments and statewide assessment grading, and then probably the biggest one would possibly be that speech language pathologist position that we share with the hospital, if push really came to shove. But I'm just throwing those out there as hypotheticals. Jeanette, at this point, we don't know. We need to see, we won't find out until next week what our health insurance increases are. We do know things are going, PERS is going up 27,000, is that it?
Overall,
Yeah.
yeah. That was
For just us.
just
Yes.
us in our
Wow.
Yeah. So, between PERS and health insurance and other things, we know we're gonna have some increases, and we know that 7.8 won't stretch and cover it, so.
What's health insurance? What kind of increase are we looking at?
We're gonna ask for a $25 cap increase, which would be the effect on our budget. I don't know what kind of increases OEBB is gonna do on the rates overall. They're
We don't know yet.
No, we'll know
They're
next week, John.
very tight all the way up until May 5th is when they said they would release that.
So,
Is it the tier 1 retirees that cost the money?
yeah.
And so,
It's,
we'll be
I,
dying off soon.
yeah. Yeah, it's pretty, I really,
Yeah. I just hope I live long enough to
of course,
get a check.
I'm a tier one,
Say, aren't you tier 1?
I'm a tier 1 retiree as well. And
There's the problem.
Exactly. The sad fact of the matter is that the people that are gonna get hired in the future are going to get a very low level of retirement benefit because of the difficulty they're having in paying for the current retirees and or the tier 1 folks that are still working. It's.
I do get kind of, and maybe it's just because if this works out, this will be one of the few financial benefits that I've ever acted upon. They all make the tier 1 employee the scapegoat for the budget. And that isn't the case.
Well, it's like they didn't plan for it.
Well,
Yeah.
Well,
it wasn't
They didn't. That's the problem. They didn't
employees'
plan
fault.
for it.
I remember when they tacked on something incredible to our PERS, I was tier 1 of course, 17-18%.
Oh, yeah, in the late 90s and early 2000s,
Yeah.
there were some 25-28%
Yes.
returns.
Yes.
And that's part of the problem. Now, actually, well, anyway, yeah.
They did
that's-
cut that back.
Oh, way back, yes.
But-
We haven't seen those in years.
But still, I thought, wow, that's great, but, yeah, I knew that was never gonna be
It's kind of a
sustainable.
Bernie Madoff
And
situation.
sure enough, it wasn't.
Well, and part
Yeah.
of the problem is, if you don't know this, is that the employees can be in what's called the variable. They can have 3/4 of their retirement fund in the variable, which means that whatever the return is on the investments, that's what they get, and that's how some of those years they were in the 20s, okay? But the employers always have to be in that fixed, and the fixed, of course, is a guaranteed rate of 7.5%. And so you had, really in the 90s and early 2000s, you had many years where the employees were getting these huge
Right.
returns, and the employers were stuck down here, and now they have to make them up. Particularly, it's bad for those employees that retired under money match, and they've done away with that about a dozen years ago. They made some changes to the system, and nobody gets money match anymore. But the people that retired around 2000 all retired on money match, and that is a huge part of the unfunded part of the PERS.
And remember, the state Supreme Court justices get PERS.
Yeah. That, and
So
I'd
when it
say
comes to
then
fixing the problem, remember who's losing.
The other issue of late is that guaranteed 7.5%. Now, it used to be that 7.5% wouldn't keep up with the actual rate of returns, and that caused an imbalance. Well, now the problem is, the actual rate of returns is 3 or 4%, and yet everybody's guaranteed 7.5%.
It used to be
And so
8%.
rates are going up by $27,000 here at Lake County ESD
To match
to make up that difference, yeah.
Well, it will take care of itself eventually. 'Cause
Well,
1995 was the last.
you said
per
how
one.
it's gonna take care of itself, and it
Yeah.
has to do with, yeah, the
Well, really,
demise.
1995, that was the last
You're feeling okay.
tier one.
Offset aches.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Anyway, okay,
Having
let's,
everybody hold their
All
dog.
let's move on to a little bit happier subject. I listed here just a few of the bills that we've been following. The only bill really of consequence, and it's not a consequence to the ESD at all, but it is to our local school districts, is the PE mandate, where they, 10 years ago, the legislature passed a law that said starting in 2017-18 school year, districts will have to provide 150 minutes of PE for kindergartners through 5th graders and 225 minutes for 6th through 8th graders. Well, then all of a sudden, the legislative session opened and people are going, oh my gosh, that's next year, and we don't have any money, we don't have any PE teachers, we don't have enough facilities, we don't have, and so they've worked out, the bill is still there, but they're gonna basically take 3 to 4 years to phase it in
It's
now.
gonna be a 14-year project.
Exactly, isn't that?
Does it have to be a certified PE?
Okay, they have mitigated that. They still want certified PE teachers teaching about roughly half of it, or
But if
so.
you get plush ADL,
Right, there's exceptions for those schools.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's also exceptions, if you only go a 4-day week or a 4.5-day week, they prorate it.
okay.
So there's exceptions for that, so it's not too horrible, and the K through 5th graders is phased in. Debbie and I were just looking at this, the new version of the bill is just obtuse. That's what's phased in first, and it's phased in by about 2021, and then the 6th through 8th graders isn't really phased in until about 2023, so they backed way off. Again, because of the money situation, they just, the other good news is there's House Bill 2246A, and this is really good news for our smaller districts. Measure 98, of course, allegedly set aside funding for, dropout prevention, raising graduation rates, supporting career technical education. The way that ballot measure was originally written, schools had to support all of those kinds of programs. But this bill amends that and allows that if you're a small school district getting under $200,000 in ballot measure 98 money, if you so choose, you can just focus on one area: dropout prevention, CTE, graduation rates. The other thing that it does that's very helpful is it allows you to spend a certain portion of those funds down in the 8th grade. The ballot measure that was passed again said just high school, and that's good. Those others, the one that we were most worried about here at the ESD would have shortened the evaluation timeline from the current 60 school days to 75 calendar days. It bit the dust. The one requiring social workers from the ESDs bit the dust, and also one that would have required school nurses bit the dust. Because again, these were things that just,
Who's gonna pay for it?
who's gonna pay for them? Exactly.
School nurse, do you remember having a school nurse?
Yes, my grade school had a school nurse.
We did.
We have Shirley Brown.
Still have.
Yeah. That's crazy, you can't get enough nurses to.
So anyway, we will keep our fingers crossed on the money. I don't know that they're gonna get it up to 8.4 where COSA and OSBA would like it, but I think they will get it somewhere north of 7.8.
Why is it so bad, the budget? What, does anybody know?
According to like Kerr, and maybe you would know more than I do, a lot of it, they're taking money from schools and putting it into, is it DHS? Or is that
Well,
right?
now.
No, well, I know that, but he, he said
So-
they're taking a lot of money from here
Yeah.
because their needs are coming up, so they're equalizing them out.
Yeah,
I mean, why is the state budget in such bad shape? What happened?
that's probably the bigger question. And I think that gets very political in a hurry. But Oregon puts all of its eggs, really in an income tax basket. We don't have a sales tax, we've capped our property taxes, and so,
Perfect.
you know, they're just, it just, and you would think with unemployment so low that, but it's not true. The other issue is, and what you hear is that between the legislature and the voters, I mean, take Measure 98, for example. The voters passed, you know, we voted down 97, the corporate tax increase, but we voted for 99, which was outdoor school, and 98, which are the three things we just talked about. And we keep doing that, and we keep saying, well, we're gonna spend money on this, and we're gonna spend money on that, and, you know, and the amount of responsibilities the state keeps taking on just keep getting bigger and bigger, and it's growing faster than the revenue is. And it's pretty scary, because we've had a lot of bad times, but this is the first time I can remember when we've had this bad a time.
When money's good.
Yeah, when we're not in a recession, and the money theoretically is good.
Don't you
It's
suppose-
not a recession.
Yeah,
Don't you
yeah.
suppose too
Not
that-
only is it not a recession, unemployment in Lake County is at an all-time record low, 5.6%.
That's-
Unemployment in Oregon is at an all-time low. I forget exactly what it is, but it's like
It's
4.
less than 5%.
Yeah, it's less than 5%. It's
Don't you suppose a lot of it too, and I'm not bagging the government or anything, but it's just I look at the schools and, you know, you need, 20 years ago, all the unfunded mandates that the schools gotta come up with the money for, you know, between special ed or this or that, or you need this room and that room, and don't you suppose you start adding employees and you're getting the same budget increases, but you've stocked all these extra people because of different
Yeah.
legislative
Oh, absolutely.
reasons on top, so the money gets thinner and thinner,
Absolutely.
even though in reality, you're probably
We're
not
on a
doing it.
hiring freeze, we can't go anywhere, no training, no travel, but you'll go out and try and meet.
But just since I've been on the board at our school in 8 years, I mean, you just run into all these weird little hiccups where you gotta hire somebody and you don't have
Exactly.
the money,
A
and
lot,
then,
schools now, and it's, one illustration of that to me is that the Lakeview schools have half the kids that they had, you know, 20 years ago, half.
Oh, yeah.
The grade school has half the number of teachers, yet every grade school room has a teacher and is in use. Why? Because they have more special ed, they have more
More,
Title I,
right.
they have more RTI, they have
Right.
this and that.
and I might be wrong on this too, but I look at it too, is look at technology. I mean, but in the
You're
90s,
against it?
no, in the 90s, you had to walk into the office to make a phone call.
Uh-huh.
Now I can guarantee you, when you talk to a lot of people at the Forest Service, I don't know, and your departments, but a lot of times the businesses are paying for their cell phone because I want to be able to call them when they're on the go. So you start adding technology costs in. You know, when the water master shows up, he used to have a piece of paper with a, you know, your description, land description, and kind of had it all down. Now he can Wi-Fi or get on, you know, his laptop or, I mean, iPad is hooked to the phone lines, and he can punch in everything about your property. So I mean, that all costs money, and so I think a lot of it is the resources they use are.
Well, as depressing as it is, that's my report.
It'll get better.
You know, Sarah didn't say this, but I will say it. We're at the ESD here, we're actually doing pretty well. We expect to maintain our 300,000 plus cash carryover for this fiscal year. Things are looking, they're looking good here.
You
We're
should
not,
free
we are
us
not,
as a home budgeting person. You're so good at it. I could
Yes.
probably save some money if you took hold of my checkbook. That's
I could save
great.
some money if you just took mine.
Didn't give it back.
You're still going.
am I still going?
Yeah.
Are we
Kinda
on to the evaluation?
No.
Program survey?
Discussion items, aren't we?
Board policy.
Well, that
Board
might-
policies. Oh, program survey. results,
Program
there you
survey, I won't belabor this. In your packet, you have the results of the program surveys we sent out. As, you know, it seems like we struggled to get much feedback this year. I think, you know, if I was to characterize it, I would say, if you look at the numbers, the boxes people checked,
go. We're good.
they're good. Some of the some of the comments leave me scratching my head, but, and this is what I told the superintendents at our meeting on Monday, that, you know, it appears to me that what we have here is some people who don't really understand. For example, there's a comment in there about special education from District 7. We don't provide direct special education services in District 7. Well, we do to a certain extent, but
We're not their program.
but we're not their program, exactly. And so there's, and I'm sure John's with us, there's a lot of overlap and a lot of gray and, you know, and just flat, a lot of misunderstanding about exactly which programs we do. For District 7, primarily what we do is file management, professional development, you know, support along those lines. We do also do speech and stuff like that. But anyway, so again, as I look through the data, the excellent, good, fair, poors, I'm pretty pleased with that. But then every so often, as you read the comments, you kind of go, oh my gosh. And so I'm having that conversation with Mr. Kerr and Mr. Cahill and Mr. Wirtz to try to figure out how we can better delineate what the ESD does versus the districts. Anyway, the biggest frustration there is just simply that we wish we would get more responses.
Well, sometimes parents get angry because you don't fix the situation.
Exactly, yes,
Yes. It can't be done.
yes. Then, the other survey that you have in your packet are the EIECSE parent and provider surveys. These are really cool. I mean, I'll tell you, Mike and Stevie just do a heck of a job. You look, it's virtually all excellence. The comments are just out of the ballpark.
They really like Mike Benson.
Yes,
Yeah.
Mike does a tremendous job. Yeah. I'm glad to see that this survey really reflects that.
Yeah. Has he seen
from the
that?
parents?
Yes, yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
yes.
That's
Parents, not any
surprising.
school staff or anything, right?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's both for us.
Yeah.
More policy.
Policies.
Oh, boy.
Okay. You have in front of you two sets of policies. The first ones are second readings. The first readings were way back in February. GCL, staff development, which is an optional policy, but we already have the policy in our book. This, basically what this does is this moves the details into the AR. And so if you look, you know, the policy itself, GCL, is very standard and vague. And then if you look over at the AR on the next page, you'll see it breaks it down by the standards from the statute. Learner and learning, content, instructional practice, professional responsibility. It changes the AR from our previous one, which was more about logistics and the process of the ESD. It changed it now to basing it more on the state standards for teachers.
Bob, if an employee has to get new certification in, say, 5 years, how many credit hours do they have to have during that 5 years?
Quarter credits, it is 20 quarter credits per, 20 can, let me back up. To renew a 5-year license, it takes 125 hours of continuing professional development.
Okay, so that's 25 hours
It's,
a year.
yeah, and that's, okay, and so that's the equivalent of 2 3-quarter credit classes, because you get 20 seat hours per credit, per quarter credit.
Okay.
Well,
Here in Lake County, it can be difficult for teachers to get those approved credit hours, whereas, you know, if you're in the valley, zip over to Western or whatever. Do we provide any of that?
Well, not so much in terms of the college credit, but John, there is ample opportunities and support for all of our employees to get enough CPD hours, whether it's through the SPR and I process, which is, the special ed improvement process, whether it's through other professional development we put on in the districts. We don't see that employees are having a difficult time getting those hours.
If there is a presentation at the end of a staff development meeting or a staff meeting for an hour by somebody, does that count towards?
They can use those, yeah.
They
Yeah,
can, okay,
yeah.
okay. Just,
Certainly not when I'm talking, but, if Amy Fortune or somebody that knows what they're talking about, again, we just haven't seen, we've had Marcia Moyer down the last several years. We've had, District 7 and ESD have had Brad Lenhart and we've had any number of ODE people down. ODE's been doing a very good job the last couple of years about getting out into the provinces. And so we've had a number of presentations on special ed procedures, IEP writing, transitions, assistive technology, and we make these available to everybody. And it really, I don't believe we're seeing any problems with that.
They can probably do a lot of that stuff online too, can't they?
They can do a lot online, but it just seems like most of them choose to do it with the stuff that's available here.
okay.
And then, of course, you've got the employees that are working on a license or a degree at a college, and then it's no problem.
Right.
They're getting
Right.
thousands of hours. The second one is ING, which is animals and ESD facilities. This limits, it's an optional policy, but it's also an existing ESD policy. It limits the animals to service animals or animals that are part of the curriculum.
So what happens if Sarah takes her cat to the vet and she doesn't have time to get home and she has it caged in her office?
We support our employees. We're not looking for,
No, I was just throwing it out there.
yeah.
Poodle? I don't know.
That's not better.
I think it's well documented, Sarah's a dog person, not a cat person, so. And then the INGAR is almost virtually identical to our current animals in ESD facilities, so no real change there. And those are the second readings. Okay,
Do we need a motion to,
well,
I guess we can do it all.
Just one question. On this, the
Yes.
INGAR, the question one, is the service animal required due to a disability? Is that a yes or no question? There's two lines, I mean, it seems
They
like you
took out the yes and no and left the lines.
So
It didn't make sense to me either.
you don't have to say, yes, I have social anxiety. You don't have to say why you have it, do you? That's
Right.
what I'd want to know.
it's my understanding by
Yes.
state law, you don't have to divulge the nature of your disability
Uh-huh.
or the actual nature
What
of
if you
your
could
combination.
guess? But just ask. I would guess you're neurotic, is that the reason?
Yeah, it seems like a simple yes or no and no
Yeah,
fill in
and
Right.
that
Yeah, but
away.
why does it take
Yeah.
two lines?
Because then next year they'll bring this back to us with the yes or no.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it just seems kind of,
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. I didn't understand that change.
okay, so, because I thought,
That is
Somebody's
kind of,
got
it sounds
a
pretty
phrase,
personal, yeah.
Well, we don't have to make this change. We could leave the yes or no in there if they chose
yeah, I
to.
would vote to do that. It seems so much plainer.
Yeah, just yes or no.
Yeah, let's do that,
Yeah.
amend it. First reading.
Now the first readings, and the first one is evaluation of the superintendent. And in looking at this one, I wanted to bring something to the board's attention. So I'm handing out a little comparison chart of three things. This evaluation of superintendent is an optional policy, but it's an existing policy that we have with some changes. The policy that we have currently, if you look at the handout I just gave you, over on the left-hand side where it says current policy, it spells out the standards by which the evaluation of superintendent is supposed to be based on. Visionary leadership, instructional improvement, effective management, inclusive practice, ethical leadership, and socio-political context. Now, if you were to look up the OAR on administrative licensure, that is what you would find in the law, okay? And if you look up right now at the TSPC standards for what they teach to get an administrative license, those are the standards they focus on, okay? And that is what is currently in your policy CBG. And so the biggest change with this proposal you have in front of you is that it removes those, okay? The thing that kind of dawned on me is that then if we look at our current AR, and notice that this is just a proposal to change the policy, not the AR. If we look at our current administrative rule on administrative evaluation, or superintendent evaluation, it has a completely different set of standards. Financial management, policy and governance, communications and community relations, organizational management, services to students, human resources for leadership, personnel relations, and ESD goals. That's currently what's in the Lake ESD AR on superintendent evaluation. Then, if we look at my last several evaluations, and I have a feeling this goes back to previous superintendents, what I have been evaluated on, oh, by the way, I think this is the way to go. I am evaluated on leadership, policy and governance, communications and community relations. And if you look, there's a lot of similarity between your current evaluation document and your current administrative rule, which is good. Organizational management, human resources management, values and ethics, special education. Okay, so this is not germane to really adopting, whether or not to adopt this proposed policy. I am recommending that, in fact, you adopt this proposed policy. Next month, what I'm going to do is come at you guys and propose that we change our AR to reflect what you're currently doing with your evaluations and move those into your AR.
Bob, I'm not so sure.
Okay?
To me, if you take the current administrative rule, some of these really could be included in effective management. Or
Right.
organizational management.
A lot of it is semantics, yes.
And the superintendent evaluation document, it kind of been developed because of the history of the organization. And the one that got to me, the only thing that really got to me in this whole thing was the superintendent will be notified of the additional criteria prior to the evaluation. Well, duh, but when?
Right, yeah.
You know, I mean, is this 15 minutes before it starts, or?
Yeah, let's do that. I'd like to know what socio-political context is. It sounds
Sounds
like a
fancy.
big fight.
I asked him the same
Yes,
thing.
yes.
What is that?
You know,
Well, I mean, we're not gonna change anything 15 minutes prior to, I mean, we already have the document that we do.
not unless you really have a beef with the superintendent.
Yeah, but I mean,
I do-
our evaluation document's been there since and we've worked on it a couple different times, so it's kinda like to even do that, we sit and talk at
And
some time for an
I-
hour, so.
I'm really sorry to muddy the waters, because I probably should have just said, hey,
Yeah.
first reading on this policy and not even worried about this. But I'd kind of like you thinking about it, mainly because, and again, I apologize because we don't have the AR in front of us, but the AR says, these are the standards on which your superintendent evaluations are based. And they're close, but they're not quite
Should
the
be some
ones that are in your
continuity.
superintendent document.
Exactly.
And you know, after a close reading of this, and I have not consulted OSBA on it, I'll certainly be glad to do that for the next meeting, but it appears to me that it is totally up to the board to determine those standards on which you base the evaluation. In other words, it doesn't have to be these things that are in statute for the training and the licensure. It can be, like John said, it can be things that have come up over time
Yeah,
that the board identifies as being important to evaluate the superintendent.
and common sense.
Really,
Yeah, yeah.
the evaluation document should be the administrative rules. I mean.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can I say something? I think
I
at
don't
one
know.
time, that was the case. The current administrative rule was the evaluation document. But I think like you were saying, that it's, or Clayton was saying, it's, you've changed it and evolved it and
So I
it,
think since I've been on the board,
Right,
we
and
altered it, and I don't think anybody went back and looked
to
at
the
the AR and
administrative
said,
rule and changed
Yeah.
it along with the
Yeah.
document. Because I think it did, because I know it started out with those 8.
but like, you know, probably every ESD has its own criteria. It has to,
Right.
you know, as,
Right.
Do you know what socio-political
Yes.
context is? What is it?
Yeah, it's an understanding of social and political issues in your community that affect education.
Which is crucially important in a place like
Yeah.
Lakewood.
Yeah.
Boy, you can say the wrong thing real fast if you don't know that stuff.
That's right.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Like Edel and Plush, they're about the same.
but I still think that goes under community and community relations.
I think so.
It's
I
the
think
same.
it
does,
really
yeah.
does.
And to me, it's a lot easier to read.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just sounds so incendiary.
Well-
Like you say, you get a big
And
fight.
again, I hate to get us bogged down on this because the first reading on this policy has nothing to do with those standards, other than the fact that it struck me that our previous policy, when I compared them side by side, our previous policy listed those other standards, and then I looked at my evaluation, then I looked at the AR, and pretty
You
soon
have a
I'm
lot of
looking
time
at
on your hands.
three different lists of standards.
Well, I like the idea of it, and it's, I mean, with you leaving, getting a new superintendent, not that you're ever gonna see it, but say you got somebody and you didn't invite, well, that's not what that,
Right.
you know,
Uh-huh.
and their
Right, see,
evaluation was really
I
poor,
see, that's-
and maybe you think they need to move on, and he said, no, you didn't evaluate me on that criteria.
That's
So
why I
think
bring this
it's
up,
very
Sure,
good.
because there's a discrepancy between your tool and your AR,
Yeah.
yes.
So I think it's actually pretty important that we do
If
change
they
it.
see the evaluation document beforehand, they shouldn't have a gripe.
But it doesn't
No.
matter, if you, say you tried to get rid of a superintendent, and he said, no, I've done all these correctly, and you guys evaluated me over here,
Sure.
just for political correctness almost.
Well, if they're gonna fight it, and they go to the OARs or whatever, I just don't think they're gonna win if they see the evaluation document and it's been discussed with them.
They don't win, but from experience at our school, when we went through all our troubles, it's better to have your ducks in a row. Cause it all comes out in the wash.
I
This
think
didn't
you
match up with
would.
this, so.
Because they're not, an administrator doesn't necessarily go through their dismissals appeal board, do they? Can they?
Oh, boy.
I don't remember, I don't recall reading of a case where that.
What would be wrong
Yeah, I
with
don't-
lining them up, so there's more continuity?
I don't think anything.
What would be
Probably-
the problem?
Yeah.
Or where are you uncomfortable?
You'd probably more of a lawsuit situation than a fair
Well,
dismissals.
yeah, it would be a lawyer's situation. But these things that are in the present document,
Yeah, exactly.
actually, somewhere you could stretch them to include all of
You
these.
can't.
It'd be interesting
and
to
all
look
of
all
these,
that individually and say, where
Why
do
don't,
these
John,
fit in?
why don't I do that? Why don't next time I come back with one list that I feel incorporates all of those?
Yeah, I don't have an argument with any of it. To me, it just seems like you're going through extra work
Yeah.
to do what you're already doing.
But if you look at it, they all cross over.
They do,
Yeah.
yeah.
It would be interesting if we each individually crossed it over and then compared them and see if they
Yeah.
were.
The only one that's not there is financial management in the evaluation.
Well,
guess
except
I'm
that-
thinking
that
of
could
our-
be organizational management
Like,
too.
but I'm thinking of our actual document, and aren't these the headers on our document?
Yes, they are.
And that's what
Yes.
I'm thinking, it's cut and dried and very clear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's how
You
I look
can't-
at it.
You really can't spring something on a superintendent 15 minutes before, but apparently the superintendent can spring it on the board 15 minutes.
Of course, or just minutes before.
Yeah.
except they're the one getting evaluated,
Yeah.
they're not evaluating the board. And,
True. Thank God.
Yeah, you're right, they could.
Well, again, it has no bearing on tonight's decisions by the
But
board.
it's a good thing to think
But
about.
why, again, I will try to combine those things, so we don't, because I agree with Clayton. I would like to see our ducks in a row, I'd like to see those
Black and
things. I would like to see the document, since the AR says that's what you're evaluating on, I'd like to see the document and the AR to be the same.
Okay.
And you've lived through it.
If it's
Yeah, so,
from
So
and
you
ours,
have-
yeah.
a legal
have to-
point of view, I guess.
Because when you start whipping out the
It really
policy
doesn't
book, and then
change
you
their
realize,
evaluation.
yeah,
No, it doesn't.
there's
Jim,
no
it
gray
doesn't.
area in a lot of that.
I was just trying to save you some work, you
Right.
know.
Oh, let's load him up before he goes.
Yeah.
Is it your one?
And the other thing, you know, when you start talking about
They're just
people
throwing you under the bus,
and
aren't
lawsuits, worst case scenario,
they? He offered you a room at his house.
I know.
Next to the
I'm
golf
sorry.
course, do you golf?
so
No.
you're in the golf course?
No, I know.
I can't wait till I get tier one retired.
All over the place.
Wow.
But I didn't have any.
Oh, no, it's just philosophical
Yeah.
stuff, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
GBMA whistleblower, this is a current ESD policy except for the paragraph in yellow, which speaks to the affirmative defense. This is also a required policy, and we, like I said, we currently have it. And then the final one, and as I always say when we get to family medical leave, I have to defer to Sarah. This is, again, a required policy. Other than the yellow, it is current. They basically just in both this, the policy, and the next, the AR, they have just made some language tweaks.
Do we have 20, we don't have 25 employees,
We get
So-
kinda close
kind of
with
close.
the youth mentor program folks added on.
We're required to have the policy regardless of our number of employees. The AR, if you have 25, you're required to have it, and since we're close, we currently have the AR, and it's because, yeah, we've been very, very close the last few years. And I have to, my hat is off to the people that rewrote this. The AR is much more understandable than it used to be.
And there's some brackets in that AR.
Yes.
And I missed that.
There's on page
4.
9-12, medical certification.
Oh, I missed those ones.
That's part of the current language, and it says the ESD may or shall require an eligible employee to provide medical documentation. We currently have may on that sentence.
Sarah has several other ones she caught on.
Yes, I'm sure she did.
Also,
Yeah, right. On page 4, under leave period, for the purposes of calculating an employee's leave period, the ESD will use, I like the, any fixed 12-month leave year, so that we can designate the school year as the 12 months.
Yeah.
And then on page 7, under paid unpaid leave, there are some long brackets. I like the bracket that starts on the next page, page 8, saying that the ESD requires the eligible employee to use available accrued paid leave, but the employee can choose what order, if they use their personal leave first or their sick leave first.
so mark out everything else
Yeah.
from
So on
on
the same
that
leave, they're
10.
just choosing how to use it, right?
Yep, yeah.
So Sarah, on on that, there's like 2 different sets of brackets
I think
there.
there might be 3 sets of brackets.
And so we're deleting the first 2 and going to the
first two.
last one?
Mhm,
Okay,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. And then on page 10, this one's an easy, under notification. Additional information may be obtained by contacting the superintendent, because there's no personnel director.
Thank you for catching that.
Any more questions on that? Oh, he's got more. Wow.
One more thing on the agenda. Ready?
Yep. I'm going for it.
Okay, final thing tonight is to discuss a cost of living adjustment for ESD employees. We are proposing at this point a 2% increase and a $25 increase on the cap. You can see there what the cost is. I wanted to propose this tonight because salary and fringe benefit issues belong at this board, not at the budget committee. I would hate to see us get bogged down over this at the budget committee. Yes, things are up in the air. Yes, if it stays at 7.8, we may have to make some cuts. It could even come back to the point where we have to say we don't have the money to do this. But at this point, what I would like is the board's support to build an initial budget with a 2% COLA. And we will, as you guys just said those kind things about Sarah, we will certainly proceed with caution, but we would like to at least begin by building our budget that way and see how it looks. You know, it's not getting any easier to hire employees. We have to remain as competitive as possible, so.
Yeah, the cost of living increase, it's probably realistically been more than 2%. Yet employees, it seems like for the last 10 years or longer, that's been about the average increase in salaries, and stagnant at best. And, you know, you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't, budget-wise.
Yeah.
Because if you don't give it, you're gonna start losing employees because we're not paying them.
Yes.
Therefore, I recommend going for it.
I would agree.
Yeah.
It's certainly a reasonable request.
Put in the budget and then, I mean, you gotta start somewhere.
We have to start somewhere, and I think we start there, and, you know, if it gets to the point where it just won't fly, then we come back and ask the board to go back. But at this point, I think I would like to have that, this board to approve that, so we move forward with it. And again, it's because it's not something that I really want to get into a lengthy discussion next month at our budget committee.
Yeah. Need a motion?
Well,
Well, can I ask one question? It'll be brought up at the budget meeting?
oh yes, it'll be on.
And will
yeah.
people feel like that we kind of did an in run or anything?
It's not really there.
Okay.
To me, it's like being on the school board, we negotiate with the teachers, and then every year we bring it to the budget committee and say,
Okay.
this is what the cost of.
Okay.
And yeah, my opinion is we get what we pay for.
Sure.
I mean, anytime you can give somebody a little extra money and you know you're getting something out of it, and I think it, you know, to me, it increases productivity, you know,
Yeah, no, I agree. I just.
so.
No, it's not, no, we certainly don't hide it, it will certainly be
Mhm.
right there on our list of changes, and, you know, we always have those those lists of highlights, and it'll certainly be there.
Will there be people who say, well, you should have told us about this first or
I'm
something?
feeling
Or why are we on the budget committee if you're not gonna?
Um,
I'm just trying to.
It's never really come up. The only
Okay,
time,
okay.
in my experience, the only time it's really come up was 2 years ago, when
Mhm.
we proposed, and we did go to the budget committee with that one, and so that we did handle a little bit differently, but when we proposed, the ESD picking up the 6% pickup.
Mhm.
Can't really, if I really had thought it through, I would have handled that exactly as I'm handling this.
Okay.
Because again,
Yeah.
salary and benefits belong with the ESD board, not the
Yeah.
budget
Right.
board.
Last
Okay.
year, when we had the big issue about paying for education, and that got kind of goofy in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really, yeah, I think it
I-
belongs with this board, and I guess we just did our budget committee meeting and stuff. Obviously Sarah was there, but I look at it as more as you're getting community guidance. If you're really upset, but our role as board members here is to make the ESD function, so I think they're more of a, so when I look at the budget committee, you're getting more input than all of us sitting in a room. It's just kinda, but if we're all buddied, oh yeah, give everybody what they want, and then you still have a little oversight on the budget, I guess, so.
Sure. No, I think
And of course, and it did, I remember in 2 years ago, it certainly did,
Yeah.
there was some discussion about that 6%. By the way, and I might also remind the board that last year there was no COLA, because we felt, I think we said this, that the 6% the year before, we felt had taken care of last year as well,
But no, I think
I'm just,
I'm 100% in support. I think everybody's earned it around here, actually. so.
Yeah.
absolutely.
and really when you think about 2%, you make $50,000 a year, 2% is $100. It's $1,000.
Spread out over 12 months.
Yeah,
Is less than 100.
yeah,
Before taxes.
exactly.
Well, I don't know, the budget bill, we pay more money in taxes.
There you go. So it's probably really only costing us about $988. Yeah.
We don't quit there and
Do
end up
you see
owing
why you
money.
need help? Someone who thinks that 2% of 50,000 is $100. See, I need help.
All right, action items. 4.1, we need to approve the board policies and administrative rules, yada, yada, yada. Everything we just covered in the policies. Can we just lump them together and say first and second readings?
I'll make that motion.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Moving to second, any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, 4.2, to approve or reject the staff COLA request.
I make a motion that we approve the staff COLA request.
Second it.
Moving second, any more discussion on it? All in favor? Aye. And that's it. When we do, yeah, Paisley, I was gonna ask that. Who's bringing the food? Are you cooking again?
Oh,
He's a glutton for
Are
punishment.
you gonna cook again? Right?
He
I'm
said
gonna
he's
do-
gonna do the
oh, we
chicken.
talking about the budget?
Oh, yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm asking about the food, because I always
You
kind
bet,
of look
we're
forward to
gonna,
those. since you
I'll do
started cooking.
tri-tip, and we'll probably get some salads from the Lockers or Happy Place or something.
Somewhere.
When is that?
That is